Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of The Lab with Good Cube Kitchen. My name is Xiii Butler, and as you can see, we're doing something a little different today. My brother hit me up and said, I want to make a skull-shaped cheesecake for my wife's birthday. But here's the catch. I'm afraid I'll burn down the house trying to mess with you. And so we decided that we're going to go with a no-bake cheesecake using this skull as the mold. It comes out pretty good for my first attempt making a no-bake cheesecake. So this recipe is super simple, not a lot of work. The total prep time is about 45 minutes, and then you sit, you wait, and then you get to eat. So let's start working.
The first part of this that you want to prep because it needs to chill is your crust. So I'm going to combine 28 Oreos in my food processor. And once I figure out how to turn it on, I'm going to turn it on and grind them until they are a loose gravel. During my prep, I melted 4 tablespoons of butter. Now I'm going to turn them out into a bowl, add over my 4 tablespoons of butter, and mix them until they resemble wet sand. Now that they are nice and moistened, I'm going to press them into the edges of the springform pan. Once I get them just about even all the way around, I'm going to switch to alternating between the back of this small cup and then just give up completely and use my hand. Going to place this in the refrigerator while I make my filling. The filling consists of 16 ounces of softened cream cheese, or 2 blocks. If you really want to make this and you forget to let your cream cheese set out, a pro tip is remove the cream cheese from the foil, turn the power on your microwave down to between 40 and 50%, and microwave 15-second intervals at a time until it's room temperature. Allow it to whisk on a medium-high heat for 90 seconds to 2 minutes before scraping down the sides and returning to medium speed. You're going to want to scrape down the sides constantly because the cream cheese on the outside will be harder than the cream cheese closer to the middle. Once it seems like your cream cheese is really nice and smooth, now you want to add in your vanilla extract as well as your lemon. A pro tip for lemons, after you've washed it, squeeze it against the cutting board, rolling constantly. This will squish the inside. You won't even need a juicer, just a fork. You want to add about a quarter of a cup of lemon juice, which is about the juice of half a lemon. Once the lemon juice is well combined, you want to add over your can of sweetened condensed milk. You want to get all of it in there because this is basically the core of the sweet for your cheesecake. I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl one more time before whisking it for the final whisk. And the final product is going to be this beautiful, smooth, and creamy filling. Now, if you are smart, which I wasn't, this would be the point in time in which you put together your crust and your filling. I didn't do that, so my final product is a little bit more difficult than you would have to do. right now is the perfect time to cut out your crust, then fill your mold, put your crust in your mold, and let it set in the refrigerator for 2 hours to overnight. Of course, I didn't do that. I did it backwards. So I'm going to now fill the mold, which was a smart idea. What I should have done next was put my crust in the mold, then refrigerate. I'm using plastic wrap so that it doesn't stick to the mold because I don't want to freeze this. I'm not particularly a fan of frozen, no-bake cheesecake. Sometimes it can become grainy in the freezing process. Pouring it over into the mold, making sure that I get it nice and smooth. I'm also trying to press it down so that I can get all of the defining features of a skeleton from the mold. I'm hoping that it will lift with all of those features intact. This is where you would take your cutout crust and place it right here on top, and then plastic wrap the entire thing, refrigerating it. If you're smart, which I wasn't. In the alternate version of the universe in which I was smart in the making of this, I am going to remove the spring form and I'm going to cut out the crust using the mold as my mold. Duh. Cutting around the sides carefully with a paring knife, hoping not to cut myself. This isn't extremely difficult, and if you want to do this with kids, you could use a plastic knife because the crust is really only held together by the butter and sugar bonds. It does not require a sharp knife to do this. Now I'm going to remove the excess crust so that it's not in the way for the final decoration. In order to fix my mistake, I took about 4 ounces of the mixture, combined it with about 2 ounces of milk, and microwaved it so that it was nice and thin. I spread it onto the crust so that it would form a bonding surface. And then I'm going to flip out the cheesecake from the mold onto the crust. didn't look very much like a skeleton. And so I decided I had to do something about that. Using the remaining pieces of crust, I'm going to fill in the eyes, create a skeleton nose, and then I'm going to use some chocolate ganache, which is just melted chocolate and coconut oil, to make the mouth, and some pumpkin seeds, which you'll see again on Sunday, to make the chin. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my first no-bake cheesecake. Didn't come out exactly the way that I wanted, and I think I'm going to go back next week and try to do that. But I still think it's a pretty cool experiment to try with the kids. So, as always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is Good Cube. Please follow me on all social media platforms at Good Cube. That's GOODCUB3D on all social media platforms. And thank you. Have a good one.